Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Asuka here. This is going to be another video for Conqueror's Blade, published by Porous Interactive. We are here on the PTR for the new season preview. And we're going to take a look at a lot of things. First up, into the Battle Pass. We've got the level 1 going up to level 20 for the banner. Oh, and avatar icon if that's important. Then all the way up to the unit attire one, which is currently bugged. The horse and the level 100. So let's take a closer look at these in the personalization. There you see, get a little bit of feet action here. Personally, don't like the breastplate too much. They did a really good job though, trying to integrate it into the costume, but the attire doesn't work with the breastplate. I'm really feeling that they should have just kept it similar to the male one, which this piece would be larger. I think the belt is larger on the male one as well. Taking a look at the level 1, looks great. In fact, I do think they did a really good job with this one, though I think the mismatch with metal and leather just doesn't do it for me. But overall, the look is great. Nothing too out there. I think um, just in general, this one probably a bit better in terms of just like in just terms of like overall attire works more than the Warborn, but I definitely do love the Warborn much better than the Bloodborne one, if that makes sense. Of course, we're going to go take a look at the Fame Shop as well.
Without bees bears no fragrance.
Fame Shop has a color difference one, so we got the black, silver, get a bit of turquoise here, and white. This one's going to switch up to a more turquoise, a little bit less black in there, but a lot more of that dark green. Still got a little bit of white here and there, but overall very similar. I think the dark theme for both of them just makes both the tires almost identical, but they are just recolors, which are not terrible. It does give a very good free attire for those that play the season. Now, I'm going to switch. Oh, hang on. Before we switch over, I did forget to go to the season vault. So we got the. Oh, there we go. We've got the recolors for the Sparta season. There's short sword and shield. Good old poleaxe. I don't like the poleaxe. And that's the spear, if you can catch a glimpse of it. Spear is not too bad. I do think that the short sword and shield is probably the best. I never really liked the level 1 Spartan attire, especially for the female. The male one was pretty generic, but again, like they did okay. Um, I just really wish that yeah, no, I just really wish that they toned it a bit down and have it look more traditional. Of course, the oh, did I get the oh, it's the Alexander season. My bad, not the Sparta season. Is this the Alexander season or this is Sparta season? I think this is the Alexander season. My bad. I said Spartan season, but I meant the Alexander season. You know. Ah, well, no, I did confuse myself. Um, as I was about to say, looks good. Tire makes very good effort to, uh, again, just color code it to a dark, not exactly black, but like dark metal with the kind of like blood red. Not exactly bright red, but more of a blood red. Not bad. I do like the black hair more than the blonde, mostly because of the lighting effects makes the blonde looks terrible. Obviously, there are going to be some visual glitches. Hopefully they get fixed out when it hits live. And I feel like this probably looks worse. I do like the I do like the natural color of the lion, but the darker lion's not too bad. Again, just generally a recolor. Of course, you got the old ones, and finally this page. Now, switching over to the male one, we're going to go quickly through the male attires. As you can see here, looking very snazzy. I do love the male attire. I do think the Warborn one is absolute peak style right now. Probably my favorite attire to come. Oh, just so we can get a look as well. There's the horse, looking quite cool itself. I definitely do love armored horses. Gonna add it to collection of my armored horses. Probably one of the better ones. Got a lot more engraving. Don't need to go to that one actually. We'll go straight into personalization. Warborn. Of course, yeah. As you can see, this thing comes down, covers over the breastplate. Looks very kind of natural and kind of like the aesthetics suit like it matches the aesthetics kind of oh kind of like I'm thinking of like Mesoamerican kind of like the Aztec kind of thing. It just works somehow, and that's kind of what I think I've been feeling. Kind of that like Mesoamerican style of just that kind of style. So that's definitely seeping through when I look at this Warborn attire. But overall, I definitely do love me some black metal armor. Looks great and shiny. The Bloodborne one, Bloodbound, sorry. I said Bloodborne. Different game. Um, Looks good. Very similar to the female one. Of course, again, I don't like that leather breastplate thing. Just looks a little bit more consistent this way. Other than that, um, still looks perfectly fine. A good attire. Nothing terrible about it. As I like complain about this leather piece and nipple tassels. Now that I pointed that out. Just a quick look at
Shall I
the
bounce
Fame shop
tonight
yet
into the
again
sky?
for oh, one more. For the turquoise one. A little bit different, I would think. I think it's the collar here that's popping out for me. But still, very similar to the black one, but I mean to the other one, but I do prefer the darker black, the turquoise kind of hue that's um kind of painted on top of the metal makes it look worse than it should. If it was just silver, it would look great, but I definitely do think the black and silver with the neutral cloth for the white looks much better. But then again, I think I'm just edgy because I like black. Continuing on, we're going to go straight into the footbow. It is a ranged infantry crossbow type. Characteristic: Iron Will. During the it says Dynasty Awakening, Terracotta Arts of War. Massive long name. I'm just gonna call it Terracotta. We get leadership reduced by 10, so whatever leadership it is has now, it will go increase by 10 after the season end. The footbow is a large crossbow that can that can pierce and attack 5 targets. However, since it is a handheld crossbow, the crossbowmen move slowly and cannot push siege engines or climb ladders. All attacks require issuing a command to execute. All right. Basically, inconvenient action one, the exact same as the Metallators. Oh, they call it encumbered. So honestly, I don't think these units should be encumbered. I think that's kind. I think they just kind of use the metallic. I think they just use the Falconetti gunners as templates, so they probably could. They probably couldn't figure out how to make that work. Other than that, I think um, that's not much of an issue. No one's climbing ladders in the first place, and you definitely not never put any ranged units on siege weapons, especially high valued units that are easy to kill. But they also have the ignition bolts. Targets hit by the footbow will be marked with an explosive fuse dealing 10 damage per second, stacking up to 10 times. The higher the stack, the greater the damage upon detonation. Combat penalty versus heroes. Damage dealt to heroes by this unit is reduced by 50%. All good and well. Most ranged units will have something like this, and it's not a surprise that kind of like especially ranged unit like this would have it once you see the stats. That being said, I know they're classified as a crossbow, but technically it is a bow. It's just that it's a very, very high poundage bow. They just use it just looks like a crossbow, but it's not actually a crossbow, if that makes sense. Um, the most important thing here is that it hits 5 targets. Wow, that is a lot of targets. But don't forget, Pavis also hits 4 targets. I believe it's 4. Could be wrong about that. The last time I believe it was 4. Anyway, we have 2 formations, disperse and line, exactly the same as metallic doors. As you can see, 12 is also the same amount that they can get. We have the crossbow setup, so they set up their crossbows to attack and withdraw. Easy, simple enough. We got the generic attack area, and now we have the ignition detonation. So the skill of when they hit stuff, they ignite them, they mark them, allowing you to use the ignition detonation. So when enemies units marked with fire are within range, release this skill to shoot explosive bolts, detonating marked enemies, dealing high damage. Base cooldown is 25 seconds. Now we're going to look at these absolutely insane stats. Not the health though. We 2,766. We got a strength of 12 out of 12. Leadership is 170. That's going to be 180 at the end of the season. A terribly slow speed at 4.2. A range of 150. Wow. Haven't seen a range this long since the Lion's Roar crew got nerfed on the PTR. An ammo of only 360. Not a lot of ammo. That's 30 shots for each of them. Um, labor, not even important. Now we come to the good stuff. The most important thing about any ranged unit is how much damage they deal. And we're looking at a piercing armor penetration of 5,003 with the piercing damage of 3,923. Serious, serious stuff. That hits, they're going to hit hard and they're going to hurt even some of the most heavily armored of troops. Then again, a lot of troops are going to have that damage reduction, which does not get affected by the armor penetration, and again, just affects their damage directly. But then again, even the toughest of armor, let's go with the Iron Reapers, have something like 1,100 armor. That means they're going to only reduce the Quinn's footbow to something around about 80% of their damage. That means they're still going to deal something like 3,200 damage. We got the defenses as well. For piercing, we got 381, slashing 355, and blood defense at 243. Nothing special, but higher than usual. Most ranged units will have a very small amount of health, and it is the main reason why ranged units are suffering. And again, the game, CB devs, if you're listening, fix the health problem. You can't design range properly if they're so squishy, a sneeze is going to kill them. You need to give them roughly a good amount of health that's going to even match a lot of the infantry. You need a baseline to work with. That way, they don't just die at a snap of the hat, and they're not super vulnerable to just kind of like to attacks that infantry would scoff at. Like seriously, musket bomb. Previously the longbow explosive arrow. Even now, really powerful longbows can actually use explosive arrow to snipe out good sections of archers. Not some of the higher tier archers, really around about 4,000 health. It takes around about 2 hits, but that being said, um, yeah. Particularly, this unit also is a very small unit with a size of 12, almost being in one-shot zone. Not a good look. However, super long range, high damage can be quite deadly, but I will show why that's not going to be a concern. We're going to move over to the Veterancy line. We have piercing armor damage, we saw that. Well, all of the stats, of course, this is since it's veteran, you'll see all those are the end game stats. I also did the unit tree. I didn't max out the unit tree, so if I missed out a couple of nodes, I'm sorry, but that's the rough amount of stats you'll see. I do have the doctrines on, but they're not relevant to stat increases. Anyway, 2% for 6%, 5% per level for 3 times for 15%, movement speed 3% per level for 6% increase. Tiny amount. Again, really need to buff that movement speed. I think a 5 movement speed would be great. I think most units should be at 5 right now. Being slow and encumbered like this is just really terrible. Health increase 3% for a total of 9. Terrible, absolutely garbage. We got reduced cooldown of ignition detonation by 2 seconds per level, so for a total of 6, so it's going to go down to 19. Increase ignition detonation damage by 150 points per level for 300 extra damage. Ignition detonation can execute enemies with health below 20%. Quinn's footbow and it changes the name to incineration. So that is the unit veterancy. We're going to move on to the unit doctrines. It's going to have 2 rare doctrines. Spark, increase the additional burning damage of Ignition Bolt by 40 points. Blaze, increase duration of Ignition Bolt by 3 seconds. Again, very generic ones. The burning damage is nothing special. That does stack 10 times. So once you got the 50, you get 10 times, you get 500 damage. Lasts for quite a bit. Not gonna not that it's going to matter too much when you got base damage this high. So that is the Quinn's footbow. We're going to move on to the Halberd Elites. So, Halberd Elites. It's got 2 descriptors called Control and Commander Slayer. I think these are incomplete, so they're wrong. Well, 10% leadership for Iron Will. We got Halberd Control excels in using weapons to pull enemies over shields and control them. Attacks occasionally pull enemies and can ignore block. Decapitating promotion. When successfully decapitating an enemy, grants a rank promotion after killing enemy units. Instantly restore 15% max health and increase all base defenses and damage dealt by 20% for the next 5 seconds. This effect can trigger once every 5 seconds. I would imagine that something like this should have been on something like an Aztec Jaguar Warrior, but fine. I just don't like the health restore and the fact that it triggers every 5 seconds. The fact that it does have 2 limiters, meaning 2 conditions, meaning that it needs to kill something and it only triggers once every 5 seconds, that makes it a little bit less scary. But in its full capacity, we're talking about 3% per second. So they're going to match the sergeants and going to match the men-at-arms in terms of healing. Again, they're not. These things don't have a shield. They're much squishier than those units. So that 5% health is not going to translate as well. But I don't like any healing or any sustain on units in general, especially when it's to the level that would be significant enough to cause a scenario where the unit will heal more damage than they take. Any situation where that occurs, I think CB should stomp it out. Limited healing makes attrition gameplay fun, or it just works because CB should be a simulation of battle, so you shouldn't have access to resupply and healing as much as we do now, but that's the kind of state of the game. Also, also it's just like a lot of damage, so the pace of the game is really, really fast. I think it should slow down, more health, lower damage, but that's just me. Swamp increases damage dealt to cavalry by 26% while slowing their speed by 30% for 1.5 seconds when causing damage. Um, which is really strange. I think they have the lower version of Swamp. They should have the higher version of Swamp, which decreases cavalry movement speed by 60 apparently. That 30% I think is the lower version. Does this? What about this one? Anti-cavalry, yeah, this one also has 60%. I wonder
As
why
you
they gave
command.
them the 30% one. Whoa! The level 2 one? Not even the level 2 one. That's crazy. Alright, goes to show you that these guys aren't really anti-cav. They just get a little bit extra damage against them. Um, Not sure why they have this swamp thing if they're going to do something like that. They don't even have a brace formation, so none of their formation allows them to brace. So it's kind of weird that they would have this trait. I think in general, they need to kind of fix cavalry, whether or not they add mechanics or have a complete rework of cavalry. Formation. So unit formation, we got line. It's not actually line. I'll show you in the training camp. We have wedge formation. As you can see from the image, it's a little bit different from the column formations we're used to. It's just a wedge formation with the commander situated in the back. If you have seen like if you ever seen like the wing formation for a couple of the archers, it's basically that but inverted. And we have and way more dense. And we have block formation, a very nice squared formation. It says it's a dense formation intended to enhance the unit's defenses, but wedge formation is actually way more dense. Whether or not it enhances defenses is just I don't think it does, but um, well, I'm not in the I don't have the capacity to bother to test that. For unit orders, we have Sky Split dash towards a specific direction, then step back, pulling enemies towards you, deals an additional 400 damage to shielded units. I don't like I don't like damage. I don't like bonus damage to particular units. Again, if you balance this correctly, you don't need any of these things. You simulate battle and you simulate the weapon properly. Everything could be balanced. You don't need these bonus damages to kind of fixed matches. Um, which is also really hilarious because polearm units, buckler units also count as shielded units, and a lot of buckler units counter or designed or have bonuses against polearm units. So it's just kind of really funny that that happens. We also have Halberd drag retreat to the designated direction, yank and toss enemies in front of you, reduce reduce received damage by 20% and gain immunity to control during skill duration, base cooldown of 12 seconds. So really low cooldowns, can cycle really, really fast. Taking a look at the attributes, this is what you could expect to see or should expect to see. A good health pool of 14,473, matching probably the stalwarts in health pool alone. A lot of units are pushing up, up, and up. We're long past the time of 11,000 health. I think the new standard is going to hit 15 very soon. But right now we're at about 14 and a half. Unit strength. So the strength is 25. Pretty small, if I'm going to be honest. 24 is on the smaller side for infantry, and with the larger size being 32. Now we're getting pushed up to 40. I do think with the changes to 40, we should push everyone up to kind of even out. Stalwarts is a really good balancing point. Stalwarts don't have very many issues in and of themselves. The only problem is the healing and the healing, the damage reduction on the brace. I don't think the damage is too much of an issue, but people will think that the stalwarts deal too much damage, and you could easily fix it by just reducing that down. They'll still be quite effective for the most part, but without the high damage, they won't compete against a lot of the stuff that is really wrecking the place. Mostly, um, mostly like Spartans and the Daggerack Lancers. I mean, like cavalry absolutely bodying everything, and we're using stalwarts to kind of alleviate the issue. Yang actually came back because of just the amount of ridiculousness of kind of like how strong stalwarts were and how effective Yang are against stalwarts. Besides all that, we have leadership of 220. That means they're going to be 230 by the end. Puts them in the higher end, not exactly top, but like they're close to the middle. Speed of 5.3, a little bit slower than I expected, especially for polearm units. I don't think they can afford to be slow. We have a piercing armor penetration of 1948, slashing armor penetration of 1480, piercing damage of 1344, and slashing damage of 1632. Piercing defense of 570, slashing defense of 522, and blunt defense of 299. I don't know why they just don't give them 300. So those are the stats. Let's take a look at the veterancy. Veterancy will change those stats, but you get the general idea. So we got 2% piercing damage. We got 2% slashing damage 3 times, 6%. Slashing armor penetration for 9%. Piercing armor penetration 5% 3 times, 15%. Halberd control increases pull attack frequency. Damage to cavalry by 5% 2 times for 10% increase. Sky split slows units for 3 seconds. Each level reduces target's movement speed by 10%. Not really going to matter against things that are not CC immune, but it will affect units that are CC immune. So you get that 20% movement speed reduction, makes them unable to get away. Probably, if you can use that as a combination of things against cavalry, could catch cavalry off guard kind of thing, but I don't think it's going to work. Particularly against Daggerack Lancers, because the Sky Split's is going to hit them, they're going to knock them down, and then all of a sudden, the Daggerack Lancer is going to counterattack and just kill everyone. Increases skill damage of Sky Split by 10% for a 20% increase. Pull with Sky Split and Halberd control decreases target's unit's defense by 20% for 5 seconds. Changes the name to Halberd Elite Target Guard. Bottom line, we get health increase 3% for 9%. We have piercing armor penetration by 3% for 9%. So that's right now in this veterancy line, that's a total of 21. Slashing armor penetration 3% for 3 times. Combined with this one, we can get about 18% here. Triggering decapitating promotion restores an additional 8% of maximum health. So for a total of 23% when you kill an enemy once every 5 seconds. Now we also have an increase of slashing armor penetration of 5%. My goodness. That is 24 right there. If we can get a couple of nodes up there, that's a lot of slashing. Oh wait, no, I take that back. That's only 2 points, so that's 19. Maybe get this 9, so it's a 28% increase in slashing armor penetration. That's some serious armor penetration. Halberd drag increased movement speed after use lasts for 3 seconds. Each level increases movement speed by 10% for a 20% increase. That means you're going to be pushed up to... Ooh, I think you're going to be pushed up to 6.9. 3 seconds is not a long time, though. I don't think you're going to be able to make use of it. Well, I say that, and then, like, I remember that Pike has 4 seconds, and they sprint off like no one's going to catch them. Each level reduces cooldown of Halberd drag by 1 second. So you get a 12 seconds goes to 10 seconds. So a really good cooldown can match almost matches up with the sky split. Go smack with the sky split, pull with the drag, or pull with the drag, go with the smack with the sky split kind of thing. How a drag can remove crowd control effects, gaining an extra 10% damage reduction during skill duration. Changes the name to Halberd Elite's Eagle Guard. So those are the veterancy. Let's take a look at the doctrines. So we only have 2 doctrines, and as you can see, we have most of, well, again, forget about the legendary doctrines. The only thing you need to know is that they do not have access to the charge doctrine, but they do have apparently bracing doctrine, so that's really weird. Though I do think that I don't really take doctrines into consideration when testing the unit. This is just my own personal bias. Um, for me, I think doctrines should be removed from the game, but they are a part of the game, so some things I will have to so some things will be very important to know. Other important thing to know is that these units probably will all be able to use the toughness doctrine, which is exclusive to the Chinese seasonal units. Very strong doctrine, probably one of the strongest doctrine in the game. Anyway, how would elites get the bloodied seal? Increase max health by 6%. Oh, wow. Did I make a mistake there? Yes, I did. Extra 6%. Absolutely monkey brain right there. So, their health is not exactly 1400, it's 13700. Um, that was my fault. Anyway, so the Bloodied Seal increases max health by 6%. Decapitating promotion further boosts all types of events by 8%. So you're going to get that 28% increase. You'll have something like 800 armor, not an insane amount, but you're going to reduce a good chunk of damage. Good chunk of damage, I would say. Domination's Fury enhances the damage from Sky Splitter by 6% and grant an additional 300 block value during skill duration. So, uh, Sky Splitter does apparently have block. They don't have block or block recovery and their stats, but Sky Split apparently has block on it. Straight in to, oh my goodness, and I have not gone over a couple of things. If you have noticed, I'm a little bit more zoomed out, and the icons on CB have changed a little bit, got a little more style. I think they look better. I think they look better, got a lot more style, and as you can see, my camera is zoomed way, way, way more out than on the live. So it looks like we're going to get an updated camera, updated UI, and of course, I've completely glossed over it as I have been using it the entire time. But a brand new barracks. All of these other things have not been changed, but we have a completely brand new barracks. Let me get my face out of the way so you can get a good look at everything. So you got your select all, infantry, archers, and of course, cavalry. Scrolls really fast through. Probably sees less units than before, but I think the UI is way better. You got automatically sort by levels, resupply, and a Legion filter. So, unlocked, locked kind of thing. Unit tree, seasons, others apparently, mercenaries. You got the 5-star units, 4-star units, 3-star, 1-star. So just really awesome selection. Equipped with attire, favorited units, only shoot units with mastery, kit replenishment, and of course, everything else I have been using. Very, 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 very cool. I think the UI update All right, that was weird. Uh, my bad. Um, anyway, I think they've done a really good job with the UI changes. The barracks changes, particularly, I think is a good change. There's still kind of like the issue I have where can't hold attributes, open up the attribute things, and still have, sorry, open up the veterancy and have the attributes on this side. Previously, this menu would allow you to see the changes in attributes, but unfortunately, that has been removed. Or I mean, like you can't see the changes. It's kind of like, oh, you select this, you come back and you kind of compare. So it's just like an extra step. I like that visual change where I can see this, I can see the stats on the side as I'm selecting veterancy. I wish they bring that back, but again, that's the change, so can't do anything about that. But of course, barracks to unit looking very great so far. Now, going on to trial. This is going to be the new unit training ground. Oh, unit training camp, I mean. And obviously they got a little loading kind of graphics very nicely. As you can already feel, the unit is very slow. Of course, the formation looks a little bit different actually. The locations are also a bit different. The line one's just literally right on top of you. But, must say, not not looking too bad. You press the one, so they set up. They're a bit loud as well. They talk a lot. Now, this is their entire range, by the way. This is all within their range. That 150 range is pretty long. Can't really test ranges on here. Let me just show you exactly how far we're talking about right now. Because this is the max limit I can get. Whoop. And they can still shoot up to here. And I'm already... again, adjust to the camera, but I'm probably 120 meters away. Shooting up. Boom! Look at that distance. Some mad distance, right? Love it. Definitely love it. And of course, over that distance, they do curve a little bit. But they travel so fast that it feels like they shoot in directly straight. So I'm definitely digging the update to the projectiles. The Harangs were the start. These guys are the next evolution. Now, one thing I want to note is just how insane the damage drop-off is. If you guys didn't see, the damage drop-offs from just this distance is almost 50%. And that's not exactly far. That's not exactly far. We're talking about a distance of... Talking about a distance of about 70 meters. Loses about 50%. Not bad, I would say. This does control for a lot of issues I have with range, which is dealing insane amounts of damage at super long ranges. Now, you want to see some insane damages? Oh, shield units as well. Good example. Now, one thing to note about these units is the insanity, which is their instant block break plus their high block break. Boom! See that damage just coming right in with that instant block break as well. And then we can activate the ignition. shoots right through that.
Form up.
The ignition itself does take a while to kind of like stack up, so we're going to try it against some stalwarts. I do think there is a, I do think the ignition detonation has a smaller range than 150. So you can definitely see that penetrating. Gonna hit through that target. Look at that instant lock break. Smack bang. Or maybe the stalwarts are a little bit harder to set on fire because I can activate this and I don't see any burning damage. But let's see. One shot straight into the stalwarts. Knockdown. Good damage. Block break is absolutely insane. And I'm really hating how sometimes you gotta reset that. As you get closer, that damage starts to skyrocket. If you haven't noticed already, the accuracy is not that great. Not particularly worrying. Ah, dang it. So the reason why that happened is that there's a bug on the new training camp. If you press escape, if you press control, it will just crash the desktop right now. So that is a bug. Hopefully they fix that. But I just forgot that that's a thing. So sorry about that. The Quinn Bowman, not terribly concerned about the DPS. I am more concerned about the block break. The block break being instant is extremely concerning. The damage, not so much. At reasonable distances, they're going to deal probably equal to, well, if they can hit 5 targets in the first place, they're going to be equal to a lot of the tier 3 ranged units. Of course, the fire rate is pretty low, the accuracy is pretty low as well. So it is balanced in a couple of other ways. But the damage attenuation is pretty nasty. These guys are not dealing an insane amount of DPS, but they are dealing an insane amount of block break. Block break pretty much unmatched in terms of like generic ranged units. Now, I must say, if the CB devs are listening, the instant block break, get rid of it. The Quinn footbows should not be instantly block breaking shields. For the sake and health of the game, get rid of the instant block break, reduce the block break damage to roughly around about 200, 300. In that zone, against 5 targets, it will be perfect. Not insanely high, and definitely not incredibly incredibly oppressive. Shield units will still be able to survive and maintain a reasonable protection against range, well, this particular range, without just getting completely bodied. As you saw those stalwarts ripped apart very easily. Or maybe that's how they want them. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be healthy for the game, and it's just going to mean that fast-moving units are probably going to be the ones that get to the foot bows, just because of their accuracy. Now, let's move on to the Halberds Elite. I must say though, sorry, let me go back to the Quinn footbow. The ignition detonation, it looks impactful, it feels impactful. Unfortunately, I just don't like the setup for it. You got to shoot a couple of shots. You got to shoot a couple of shots to get some ignition down. The stacking doesn't really work for me. I don't know if units are stacked. These are basically just relying on the skill being available. And I don't know if I'm getting the full value out of each activation of ignition detonation. So it's just really bad. It's just really bad in general to kind of feel like I'm not taking advantage of a system that could have big advantages. This stacks up to 10 times, by the way. So ignition bolt ignition bolt could have like some kind of crazy 3,000 bonus damage, but I can't get there because first of all, nothing has that much health. Nothing has that much health, so I'm not hitting something for peanut damage, and I'm stacking him like 10 times, considering I'm doing like probably like 10, probably like 1,000 damage. Most units would die in 10 hits at the very least, even at a reasonable range. Forget about closer range. If it was closer range, these guys would kill you in 5 hits. But yeah, Quinn Bowman, I'm not really concerned about the DPS right now. I'm concerned about the block break. They are slow. They are easy to kill. Their range, not much of a problem since the damage attenuation is incredible. Um, I think I think they hit minimum damage at about 100 meters, dealing around about 15%. So they about do 600 damage beyond 100 meters. And again, in this game, 100 meters is not very long. A lot of units can cover 100 meters fairly quickly. Going on to trial with the Halberd Elites. So, can we get in, please?
Get into position.
The cool thing about these guys is that they're when in formation, they'll do a little animation thing. Cute. Of course, this is the line formation, not really looking like a line. Got a nice wedge formation. This is a cool kind of wedge formation. I do like the density that this one goes with. And then we have finally the block formation. Super squared. We got 5x5. And of course, not as dense as probably the wedge formation, but again, to each their own. I think most people are going to use the wedge formation, but it's a bit wide. You can go a little bit denser with the block formation. In this case, we're going to go straight against the Halberd. Straight against the elite enemy. So these stalwarts, these aren't indicative of actual stalwarts from the game, so I'm going to crush them, but that's just normal. Bam! Knocks them down. Pull them away! And go back in again. Good amount of damage. Again, burst heavy. Like a lot of units. Nothing too out there. I did test this with Alan, and we did discover that their basic attack hits 2, Sky Split hits 3, and the Halberd Strike hits 3. Rough damage is around about 2,000. Nothing insane. And again, the flourishes, the CC, everything together, the unit does function as it is. It's really great. It feels great to use. I love it personally, mostly because it has a nice ebb and flow to the unit, and because of the 2 distinct abilities you got options. I mean, the Halberd drag itself is just super cool. Oh, another cool thing is how
Wipe them out. Form up.
about to say. Another cool thing is how the UI kinds of hints at exactly what the ability wants you to do. It has the halberds facing one way, and you are pointing it another way. So halberds are facing in the direction that the unit will face, but the unit will go in the direction you're pointing, which is a really cool visual indicator, and it teaches the player that you want to have this skill face away from enemies so that you can drag them along. Now, these guys are pretty good in melee combat. They got that halberd control. but they're not gonna win. They're not gonna win straight up. You gotta definitely use that ability.
To victory!
The sustain is there, but it's nothing terribly great. But you got that 5 seconds helping out.
Charge!
So those are the units.
Stand firm.
Low cooldown as well. I do feel like the Halberd drag. It's not exactly dragging the unit far enough, in my opinion.
Get into
But
position.
again, they could fix that, maybe.
Flatten them. Kill them all.
Oh, another thing is that damage is reasonable, and probably won't actually do this because it would be silly to do this.
Stand firm.
But you could just reverse into the enemy and just be like, I'm just gonna go in and then just go in more. The hitbox can hit behind them, which is quite fascinating. And it's good to point out that they kind of
Destroy them.
instantly turn when you use Halberd drag.
Form up.
I think a lot of the turning face
Get into
issues
position.
for units is
To victory.
can be a bit strange sometimes.
Form up.
Anyway, how do you guys like the preview? Do you think you guys are excited for this season? Do you like the tier 4? Do you like the tier 3? I am still skeptical on the health of CB. We haven't seen any changes for meta units, particularly the current stalwart epidemic. Still have problems with Spartans. Of course, cavalry is a nightmare. Daggerak Lancers domination is unmatched. Among the cavalry, again, serious business to deal with. Nothing, unless you're playing meta, you're not dealing with Daggerak Lancers easily. That being said, we also have people still thinking that harangs are a problem. They are. They're just a problem of units that don't have shields. And now we're going to get units or ranged units with instant block break. So, much more concerning. However, my opinion is that we're looking at a lot of problems on a lot of different units. But the new season that's coming, I definitely think that these halberds, there's no issue coming from them that I can see. The Quinn footbow, obviously, instant block break and high block break, massive problem. DPS, not an issue. I love the attenuation. The damage drop from range, again, penetration, normal. That's the exact same as penetrating bolt for the crossbows. It's just, it is how it is. However, this is the PTR. These are subject to change before the release, and I hope the developers do take in consideration your feedback and my feedback as well. I like the larger unit sizes, particularly the stalwarts. I don't want them to revert that. But if they need to get rid of a couple of things, I think brace, the brace damage reduction and the brace heal would be a good start. Otherwise, I think larger unit sizes in general would be nice. For the Halberd Elites, I do think they're going to be kind of a specialist role, fill a middle guard kind of thing, where they mostly flank kind of thing. Again, everything that deals damage is just going to be relegated to a flanking unit. If you have burst, you have damage, you're just going to flank. And 99% of the time, people feel like that is how you're supposed to play the unit. Unfortunately, uh, no. Most of the time, you're just going to straight up fight people. So if you can't fight things straight on, you're going to have problems. These guys will be very good against shields. They do spectacular against a lot of the other stuff. Um, Men-at-Arms and Spear Sergeants are no issue. Of course, anything with no damage just gets completely crushed. However, high burst units like Wu Wei or um, Paladins, in the matter of fact, will kill this unit fairly easily. But besides all that, um, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I've kept you long enough. Please do tell me, are you concerned about CB? Have the recent changes to the balance, uh, in your opinion, been good or bad? Are these units concerning for you? Are these units interesting to you? I'm pretty sure everyone's going to just hate on the ranged units. Um, for me, I do think range is a part of the game, and fundamentally, I don't have a problem with strong range. I don't have a problem with harangs. I have a problem with how much damage they deal at extreme ranges, but not at close ranges. When you're at close ranges with harangs, not an issue. But when I'm 100 meters away and they're still dealing full amount of damage, well, I say full amount of damage, they lose around about 10% of damage after 60 meters. That's nothing. That's a damage loss of 10%. And it's consistent over 90 meters. So they're basically dealing like full damage because they're always staying at around about 90 meters away from you. Harangs, again, just an issue of extreme range advantage. The DPS is reasonable within a reasonable range. Unfortunately, with arrow rain, that's unreasonable. Of course, as well, like polearm units getting trashed as well. So I am kind of being biased as well with the current high usage of shields. If polearm units were like the go-to and there were barely any shields around, harangs would probably be way, way, way more of an issue. I think when phalanx is popular, they crush. They crush, like seriously. But yeah, that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Other than that, my name's Sasuke. Have a nice day. Bye for now.